clothesline pole, and it just stood right straight up. Gas was just pouring out of it. Well, Miss Dee had her counterpart right there. I mean, she, woo! What are you doing? Put that kid on there. Well, you know, I was just like a whoop dog. About to waste the time. We just get out there now at this time, and we cook, and we play, and people would come over, and we always had families come over and eat with us. And I'd always noticed that boy would stand in his kitchen window, and he'd watch, and he'd watch. And sometimes he'd come and give him a cup of coffee. He'd come sit in the doorway and just dangle his feet out over the thing. One day in particular, Keith and I and some of the kids in the neighborhood, the little Murray boys and Jeremy and Bobby and some of them, they all came up and was having a big, red hot NBA championship game out of Fillmore basketball. Man, we played with the car. I went up there on the side of the house and put up a floodlight. I'd go and turn that floodlight on. Man, we'd be in the best 2 out of 3 championship. You got to win this game, you know. And Keith, he thought he was good. He put his little thing out there. He was going to slam dunk one. And he went and jumped on that thing and went up to slam dunk and fell and broke his arm. Had to take him to the hospital. But you know, I told you that to tell you this. We have games out there, Big John, and we just played, had the best time that it was. And I remember one night that boy, now this boy had a problem with drinking sometimes. I remember he sat over there, and he just watched us. And he watched. Now, honestly, I thought at the time he was being unfriendly. He just didn't want to have nothing to do with us. But there was so many times I remember that boy watching us. And so, one evening, we was at work, and it was close to 1 o'clock, I guess it was. The sirens was all going out. I was over there in Department 29, never will forget that. They blurred out that Franklin Road. And got home that afternoon, and someone made a comment, did you hear about the boy that lived in the trailer? I invited him to church, I talked to him. He said, nah, I didn't think he'd come. But he appreciated it. He appreciated it. Maybe he might have come one time on Thursday night and heard somebody preach, but he just said he appreciated it. Thank you, Brother Danny, but I don't need to. So I got home that afternoon, and they said, your neighbor got killed this afternoon down on Franklin Road. Lost his life. Lost his life. Went long until later on the next day, the call came in, and they said, Brother Danny, would you do his funeral? His family wants you to do his funeral. I said, yes, I will. Went up there to view. When I went up to view, I'll never forget it as long as I live. The family come up, began to talk to him. And then one in particular came up and said, I want to talk to you. I want to tell you something. So that man thought the world of you and your family. Said, you just wouldn't believe the comments that he'd say about you and your family. But one in particular, they said it was the sheriff. Said the other day he was talking to us and said he stood over there in his trailer and he watched you and your children. And he watched you playing in the backyard. And he said he made this comment, I'd give everything I'd ever have in my life just to have what that man's got right there. You see, I don't know the boy ever had any children. I know his dad died when he was a young boy. But that boy was looking for something, and it wasn't in a bottle, and it wasn't in a field, and it wasn't in an extramarital affair, but it was in knowing Jesus Christ. Had I known that, I would have ratcheted it up a little bit, and I should have anyhow. We should never be backward to tell somebody about the gospel of Jesus. We should never be backward to tell somebody about the promise of life. When I stood over that little boy, I couldn't help but weep and tell the story of what he said. I'd give anything in the world to just have what that man's got with his family. Did you know what it would have cost him? All it would have cost him was the world. All it would have cost him, Brother Chris, was to give up this old world and love Jesus and serve the Lord. The promise of life is not what a lot of people are finding tonight. It's not with a better drug. It's not with a more high-powered pill. Why do you think kids are stealing pills out of their mothers and daddies' medicine cabinets to try to get high again? Why do you think that prescription drug epidemic has struck our nation like never before? Did you know that people today, they're not smoking pot, they're not snorting cocaine, they're not using methamphetamine. You know what they're getting high on? the hydrocodone they can steal out of a medicine cabinet somewhere, or the Percodan, or some of the other pills that they can confiscate. I watched Shane Britt as they presented a program. And he said that 90% of the prescription drugs are stolen out of cabinets where parents no longer use them. And the kids finally go to school and sell them and use them in different things. You know what they're looking for? They're looking for real life. But I can tell you tonight, real life is not in a pill. Real life is not in the backseat of an automobile. Real life is not shooting up. Real life is not making methamphetamine out of Duraxo and all the junk and what that ammonia is, and all of that, whatever the stuff, I can't even call some of it, and drain cleaner and all that stuff. Is that real life? No, it's not life. Rots your teeth, burns your mind up. Real life is waking up in the morning and having the things that God's given you. I'm telling you tonight, there's a promise of life. It's not in all the things. Promise of life is not spending Memorial Day getting drunk and slushed and mashed and waking up the next morning not even able to go to work. Promised life is having everything that God can give you. Brother Ballard, and live it and enjoy what life is really about. I had the privilege to raise our children. I had the privilege to live with a Christian woman. I had the privilege to be saved and pastor this church. I had the privilege to pray hundreds and hundreds of people through the victory down through life. And if you would have set me down tonight in front of 5,000 people in this town, you would say, Danny Patrick, I'm going to ask you 3 questions. The first question being, what's the happiest moment you've ever spent in your life? And I'd have to tell you, it was the day that Jesus Christ saved my soul from a dying, flaming, burning hell, and said, you don't have to no longer go there. If you ask me what the second happiest moment in my life would be, it would be enjoying what a Christian life is all about. Enjoying going to church. I spend more time with you folks than all the people, my own family. I'm not proud of that, but some of my family choose not to go to church. And I see you more than I see them. And the third most important thing that'll ever be in my life, what would that be? That would be that when this body is lying beneath the sun, that I'm going to be resting somewhere with Jesus Christ in heaven. I've never been ashamed to tell the world. You know, I've never been ashamed to talk to anybody, to tell anybody. I've been to places that I was in awe of their facilities and their greatness and great preaching. I've never told people I was a great preacher. I'm just a soul winner. Amen. I won souls that other people didn't use the same techniques. Brother Jerry Stinson has preached a message here that of all the messages he's ever preached, I'm telling you that one has stuck with me. And how he titled it, I'm not for sure, but I know it was about fishing. And he was talking about the lures that you use. Now, you don't go out fishing for bass and use what you fish for crappie. You don't go out and fish for a catfish and expect to catch bass or whatever fish. And he began to bring out the lures and the different things of bait. And how that you fish with this, and how that you fish with that. And a good fisherman always studies about fishing. I'll never forget that message. Preached it right here in this pulpit. It stuck with me over and over and over. And the same thing goes with the child of God. If you've got something that's real good, I'll never forget it. Several years ago, and I'll close in just a minute, some boys came around their house from Tompkinsville, and they were selling Kirby vacuum cleaners. And I just got saved. And just full of the power of God. And man, I was excited about Jesus. Them boys come up to the door, and I was just looking for somebody, Brother Russell, to tell about the goodness of the Lord. Well, one of them old boys, he was a Graves boy. Never forget it as long as he lived. He came from Tompkinsville to our trade school while Monroe County was building theirs. Well, me and him were just like oil and water. We didn't like each other. And so we were going to meet up here at Scott's Guitar Exchange one day. We were going to duke it out. He's a big old boy.